Hello and welcome to an episode.
It's been a couple weeks since we've had to do an intro for one
I
of these, I
was
think.
I was so self-conscious of not doing our head bob thing that we do that I just
It's almost like when a conductor leads in the act right before they're about to sing.
absolutely
I'll give
biffed
you one
that
of those.
intro.
Yeah. I think you leave this in. I like the rant. Ranting is fun. It also cleanses the soul. Uh,
Detroit is to be one of the best sports cities in the country, if not the best.
Surely Javi can't be as bad this year as he was last year. Surely that can't be the case.
One of the worst offenses, if not the worst offense, in the modern era of baseball. Just absolutely atrocious. He is a piece to the puzzle. He is not the entire puzzle.
Right.
He is a puzzle piece, but he is not the entire puzzle.
This is the Michigan and Trumbull podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Giaconis. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. I'm Alex Freeman, joined as always by Luke Giaconis. Luke, how you doing?
Well, I think depending on how you look at this situation as a listener or a viewer of our show, maybe people are happy that we're only dropping an episode every other week so they don't have to hear my voice sound like an idiot every single week. Maybe they're sad because had we done this episode last week, I probably would have been singing a completely different tune about the Detroit Tigers than we're probably going to sing today. That really was an answer to your question of how am I doing. I'm pretty fair. I'm having a good Tuesday and feeling good. It's a nice day here in Florida. I may or may not be heading out tomorrow for a little vacation. So who's to say?
Love,
That's pretty awesome too.
with that in mind, Luke, let's timestamp this episode for our listeners because
Okay.
we are recording not significantly earlier than we normally do. We normally record on a Thursday evening. It is
hmm
in fact Tuesday
hmm
early evening. In
hmm
fact, game 2 of the doubleheader against the Cleveland Guardians is ongoing. And just to really give
hmm
you a very accurate timestamp, it is the bottom of the 7th. The Tigers have 2 men on and 1 out. And Jake Rogers is up to bat. So if you want to know the exact moment that we are recording this episode, that is it. So
That's how
sometime
the
in the middle of this
sausage.
episode, we will know how the doubleheader against the Guardians went, but that's sort of where we're at in the Tigers' schedule as we start to talk about how things are going with the team. I'm doing good. I'm actually in Texas for the next couple weeks because my wife is doing a show at Dallas Theater Center, so I'm just hanging out down here, just kind of doing that whole work from home life. Doing living the dream. Maybe we'll check out a Rangers game. I don't know. I went to Globe Life. I wasn't overly impressed the last time I went to Globe Life.
hmm
It was fine.
Just fine.
But I
Now let
just
me ask you this question: Is everything bigger in Texas?
yes.
Oh,
Including
fascinating.
minor annoyances, bigger in Texas.
Well, there's a lot of annoyances I think we could both agree on with Texas, but that's for a whole other different show.
That is a
Um,
whole different episode.
whole different episode. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear. Yeah, you are in Texas. I'm in Florida tomorrow. Well, by the time people listen to this, I'll already be back from Walt Disney World in beautiful Orlando, Florida. But hey, what can you do? Um, Look, they don't want to know what we're doing on vacation, Alex. The listeners and the viewers want to know what we think about the Detroit Tigers. So
It's
I'm going
true.
to kick it to you
Sure.
first. I mean, what are
Okay,
your
great.
thoughts? I mean, let me paint the picture here for you. So we
Mhm.
enter the season, things don't look great. Get your teeth kicked in by the Tampa Bay Rays. They go on to win 13 in a row. Just a real rough start to the season. Then they play somewhat well against the Houston Astros. Maybe let a loss slip away. Didn't play the cleanest baseball, but they took 2 of 3. Then they go back home. They get swept by the Boston Red Sox. They look atrocious. Then they go on the road to Toronto. We're in all 3 of those games, led at one point in time, but only took 2 out of 3. And then you look at this past weekend while we're recording, they take 2 out of 3 to the Giants. 2 walk-offs I'll have you. The game gets rained out on Sunday. That now puts us at the doubleheader on Tuesday because of a rain out on Monday. Tigers not only victims of bad base running early on in the season, but also Mother Nature apparently has it out for them. Just as they were getting hot, she decided to cancel things, or just someone in the Comerica Park vicinity not know how to accurately look at a weather guide on the weather app on their phone. Maybe turn on the Weather Channel. My grandparents always watch it because from what we can tell and what social media was saying as well, really didn't seem to be much of a cause to cancel those games, but that's for another conversation. So where we're standing though currently is Tigers are 6-9.
Mhm.
Nice. If they win this second game against the Cleveland Guardians, they go to 7-9. They're currently in third place. The offense is clicking. The bullpen actually looks good. The starting pitchers are starting actually like competent starting pitchers. Alex Freeman, what say you about this current Tigers team? And just so we're keeping track at home, Jake Rogers and Nick Maton got out. Tigers head to the top of the eighth, still up 1-0 against the Guardians. But before we talk about this game, Alex, back to you. What do you think?
Well, I think if listeners go back to the last episode of the show, they will hear me say something along the lines of, "I think we're in for a streaky team this year." You know, four in a row is really nice to be sitting on that. I don't know that I ever expected them to go that long with a winning streak. I was more of a 2 on 2 off, as I believe what I said in the last episode, and I think that that's what we're seeing. Hopefully, this is a a good sign of like what they're going to do this season, that they maybe have finally figured things out. But I do also feel as a fan that we've spent many of the last few years on this show, Luke, saying like, hey, maybe they finally figured it out, only for them to then just completely implode on themselves. So I think I'm taking a little bit more of a cautious
Mm-hmm.
approach to how I'm feeling about the Tigers at this specific moment. Now, Luke, as you go into this, should I cue up your rant music?
Not yet, not yet.
Okay,
But
great.
I'll tell you
Hit
when to give me the cue.
the
So
old cap
here's
for
what
me.
I think. I echo a lot of your thoughts too. I'm very excited that this win streak happened. I mean, I think they had lost what was it 6 or 7 in a row, kind of dating back to well, because they lost the 1, 3, yeah. So I think they had lost at a point in time 6 in a row, if I'm not mistaken. That's how
Mhm.
high the losing streak got to. Um, it's winning. Look, winning in any sport, it doesn't matter what it is, always cures everything. What I am taking as the biggest win, obviously outside of the actual wins themselves, is they actually look like a spunky, let's keep scrapping baseball team.
Mhm.
Whereas when they played Tampa Bay, when they played Boston, um, the games that they've lost, I really won't count the Toronto series because they were in most of those games at a point in time. They honestly should have won two out of three, but bad base running really killed them in that second game. Let's just maybe look at the Tampa and the Boston series. They just didn't look like they had any life. They looked like they didn't have any fight in them. So now to see these comeback wins, let's keep in mind again as we're recording now, we'll see how the game two goes. But their last three wins have all been walk-offs. Nick
Mhm.
Maton hit the 3-1 walk-off. Miggy had the walk-off single, and then Kerry Carpenter in game one of the doubleheader hit the walk-off solo shot in the bottom of the ninth. So like I love the scrappiness in them. And if you it goes without saying, but that win they had against the Giants on the Saturday game, where they believe they were down 6-1 and came back and won 7-6, that was a great win. And I know that's a no brainer, but that's the kind of fight I want to see from this team. And I guess after years and years and years of their not being that, is it too much to ask for that we at least have a scrappy team at some point? I mean, you would hope, but it seems like it's just such an inconsistent thing that we have with that. So I'm excited now. Do I think this is a sustainable rate of play? I'm going to say no, I don't. Um, but it is just nice to see that this team has some life in them. It has some fight in them, and that's I think what really has been the one kind of saving grace for me. I would say so. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm sorry. I'm also distracted. I'm watching the game at the top of eighth here. I'll just keep tabs on it. But it's things are okay right now. I
Mhm.
can't just forgive how they played against Tampa and Boston, but things are okay right now. I guess I would say. I'm not gonna throw a parade anytime soon, but at least we're seeing some fight. They look like a major league baseball team, and
Yep.
I guess this could be a great time to cue in. my rant music because I do have a rant, and I'm not as angry now as I was last week. But AJ Hinch, I do have a message for you.
All right. Well, here we go. I shortened it. I added a fade.
Nice. Great. That's great work. Because otherwise, I would have had to keep shadow boxing for another 2 hours, and nobody wants to see that. AJ Hinch, my man, let's talk. You are no doubt a very, very smart, not only human being, but obviously a baseball manager, a manager of this game. Why does he consistently, in my opinion, feel the need to be mundane and monotone and not show any fight? Now, caveat to this whole thing is I would have really ripped into him last week had this rate of play continued. But and I call me old school, call me old fashioned, or just call me a naive dumbass. Probably all three might be acceptable. Look what happens when you show just even a little bit of spark, a little bit of fire. He benches Javi Baez. Javi Baez, you can make an argument, has looked as good as he has ever looked in a Tiger uniform since his benching. I know it's a very small sample size, but anybody who watched that 12 pitch at bat against the San Francisco Giants, that is the Javi Baez we all want to see. That is the Javi Baez we all thought we were getting when he signed the contract extension going into 22. So I just wish AJ Hinch would show more of this fire more. And he not even you don't have to be Bobby Cox. You don't have to be Lou Pinella. You don't have to be, whomever going out there and just being an absolute nut job with umpires and getting tossed and Lloyd McClendon stealing first base, anything like that. You don't have to go to that extent. But sometimes AJ's laissez-faire and laid-back attitude is incredibly aggravating. And it's not only aggravating because it's like, does this guy even care? Which I know he cares. But I think back to those comments he made in 2021 when things were looking rather promising. The whole thing of, well, if you don't want to come here and play with us, we'll beat you. That's a great start, but I feel overall, not a lot of it is his doing by any means. Since he's made those comments, he hasn't really followed through and backed up that kind of uh, tenacity, so to speak. So
Mhm.
I just wish he showed a little more oomph. I don't need him to go out there and get into a fist fight with Angel Hernandez, although I would put my money on AJ over Angel for what it's worth. But I just wish he had a little bit more of that spark. I wish he maybe had a little bit more of that Bobby Cox in him, just a little bit. But you know, I guess maybe I know the game has changed. I know that's it's much more analytical now. I just wish, and I feel like I've said this in the past, he would do that more. And just again, a very small sample size. He didn't make an example out of Javi Baez. He didn't like berate him in front of his teammates. He
Mhm.
pulled him aside in the tunnel, benched him. Javi took it like a man. They shook hands, walked away, and look at it. Now Javi Baez is playing the best baseball he's probably ever played for the Tigers. Very small sample size, I get it, but still, I do think there is some correlation between the two. So AJ, just a little bit, please wake the hell up. Just a little bit, please.
So, Luke, my only real follow-up question here is, what manager in Major League Baseball do you most want to see take a swing at Angel Hernandez?
That's a great question.
And I'm not
Um,
saying they have to have the best odds of winning the fight. It's just like
I'm trying
that's
to
the
think who's the
rumble you want
most
to see.
jacked. Isn't well? Let's see. Gabe Kapler. He's with San Francisco. He's a
Yeah.
pretty in shape dude. I think he would rock Angel Hernandez for the comedy factor of it all. Bruce Bochy with the Rangers.
Oh,
Maybe
that'd
a
be
little
so good.
Dusty Baker. Little Dusty Baker action maybe.
Oh, yes. Give me
Um,
Dusty.
it would have been good to see Old Man Larusa during his tenure with the
Oh,
White
would
Sox.
have been brilliant.
Yeah, that could have been pretty good. Um, yeah, I would. AJ Hinch versus Angel Hernandez in a fist fight. I would take AJ Hinch all day. It'd be easy money. Wouldn't even be an issue. Wouldn't even be an issue. But yeah, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, do you think am I being unreasonable? I know it's a little bit hard now to really go at them with the pitchforks because they are playing better baseball. But like, am I alone on this? Am I making a mountain out of a molehill? What do you think?
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think that the little bit of a spark into their play that has like kind of shifted them into what feels like a new level, and like the appropriate level and into the right gear kind of backs up your point that like that's what it takes. And like we've said for much of his tenure that like we don't know what he's actually saying to these guys in the
Mhm.
dugout, what he's saying behind closed doors, because to the media, except for that one statement, we haven't really seen him get fired up
Yeah.
in any way. And like we talked about it in his first season. Like we were like, I kind of want to see AJ get tossed from a game because like we haven't even seen that.
Mhm.
And that can sometimes motivate your guys to go do things. And like, yeah, it's a new era. You certainly don't need a guy who's just going to be screaming all the time. But you want to see the passion, and you want to see him get mad at some guys. You want to see him get mad at Javi Baez for not taking a pitch.
Mhm.
And I think we're finally starting to see that. And it's paying dividends.
Well, you also it's the thing of like with a guy like Javi, I think he needs that sometimes. Like Javi
Mhm.
Baez, love him or hate him, I think we can all agree he's got to be one of the cockiest players in baseball.
Yeah.
So it's good sometimes to kind of bring someone with that big personality and that ego back down to reality. So you're not bigger than the team. I mean, what really, was the most egregious thing I think, other than the base running mistake, was after being abysmal on offense, you know, all season thus far, he hits a ball that I think he hit it to the moon, which he didn't go out. Had he busted his ass out of the box, easily could have had probably a triple, easily. He
Mhm.
got into the second base with a double, but it's just like, dude, it's those little things with AJ too. And another thing with AJ that I wish, and this kind of goes back into my grievance I have with him being a kind of that monotone, mundane manager at times, is I don't need you to go out there and tell the fans and the media exactly what's going on behind closed doors, because he has that privilege as the manager to withhold information from us fans and the media. He's allowed to do that. I get that. But just something like the cliche of like we got to go out there. Oh, we don't just. I'm already thinking about the next game tomorrow. Well, AJ, if you keep thinking of the next game tomorrow after you've lost 11 games in a row, you're going to be looking at a lot of games to try to make it up on the back end. So maybe focus more on that game that day, win it, rather than, well, I'm already just thinking about what's happening tomorrow. No, maybe think about what you screwed up about half hour ago. Why you're in here giving the same excuse we've heard for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just a thought. That's something I'm just like, come on, dude.
I understand for our audience that the current game that is happening while we're recording this episode will be almost a week old by the time you listen to this. But let's talk about Erod's pitching performance.
Yeah.
He's on
Yeah.
8 innings.
Well, yeah, that was, first of all, obviously his best start of the year, but in general, I feel like, I know it's so this is the one thing that's hard about doing taking the week off in between episodes, because I feel like we got to think all the way back to 2 weeks ago, when we're trying to pull from. But with Chris Fetter, I think the Fetter magic is real. I mean,
Mhm.
look at this bullpen in particular. What they did against the Giants on that Saturday comeback was phenomenal. I mean, as of now, knock on wood, they're blanking the Cleveland Guardians as they're going to head into the top of the ninth to try to take 2 games of the doubleheader. So
Foley is
Erod,
warming up, so it looks like Foley is going to come in and take the ninth.
okay, yeah. So Erod is, he's looking good. Who pitched on? Who got lit up? Boy, this feels. I'm not really dig back into my. Oh, Michael
I actually
Lorenzen did
love.
not
I
look good.
what a wonderful change that you had to hesitate a second and think about who got lit
Yeah,
up as opposed to just like
true.
name a random pitcher on the Tigers
And it
roster.
was probably them. Yep. Is Elvin Rodriguez still with the team? It was probably that guy. He was worthless. No, Michael Lorenzen had a rough go against the Giants. That was rough for him. Matthew Boyd, I think, looked pretty good from what I watched in game one against the Guardians. He kind of had a Matthew Boyd start, but enough to keep them in the game. And that was great. And
Mhm.
again, another game, I'm going to take it back to the offense for a second. The offense came back from that game. They were down 3-1, and they
Yep.
had a couple of nice innings, a couple of nice at bats. I think Eric Haas had 3 hits in that game. And obviously, Kerry Carpenter came up with the big solo shot. The Nick Mayton walk-off home run against that first game against the Giants was a blast. And then, of course, Miguel Cabrera could tie his shoes, and I think we're all going to get emotional at this point in time because we
Yeah.
love that man so much. So to get to see him have another walk-off moment, his first ever time in his career, he had a pinch hit. I believe it was walk-off hit, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty
Mhm.
phenomenal stuff. It's I feel bad. Had these listeners and our viewers gotten a show last week, I think we would have had to get the bleep button out because I was irate with some of the baseball we were saying, and rightfully so. It looked like little league bullshit, quite frankly. But for what it's worth, winning cures everything, and they have found a way, as they always do, to just give you a little bit of hope, just a little bit of hope that maybe, just maybe, this is it. Um, yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at there. Also, in just some injury news, Matt Manning obviously going to be on the shelf for a
Mhm.
little bit with the I think it was the broken toe. And for last time I saw, Austin Meadows was working out with the team. So maybe come back for Austin. Should we talk about Austin Meadows real quick? Because I know we
Yeah,
didn't cover that
let's
on the
talk
last
about Austin.
episode.
Let's talk about Austin and his mental health related time on the injured reserve list.
Yeah. So here's the thing, Tiger fans. And when anyone's injured, you can't give them
Mhm.
any crap for being injured. I mean, you know, yeah, you can. Some players they get injured, if they have a hangnail that it seems like they're on the aisle for 6 months, and I get that. I get the frustrations of that being a
Guys
sports
like
fan and
your favorite White Sox, Clunky Eloy Jimenez.
clunky Eloy Jimenez, or if you are a Chicago Bears fan out there, hi, hello, me, hi, it's me, hi, it's me on the problem, it's me, Kevin White, a former first round pick the Bears had, who was just Mr. Glass himself. But and I'm not trying to take anything away from physical, a ACL or Tommy John, anything like that. Those are obviously very serious injuries that need to be dealt with accordingly. But mental health
Mhm.
is such an important thing that we cannot become complacent. We have to discuss these matters head on. We have to support these people who go through mental health issues and crises head on. And as angry as I was with the Tigers last week for the rate of play they had, I was very impressed by all the comments
Mhm.
from AJ Hinch as well as the team backing up Austin Meadows. I get it. It is frustrating. We thought we won that trade with Paredes. We thought Austin Meadows was going to be a key player last season, this season, and it just hasn't been that way thus far for him, unfortunately. But we cannot turn our backs on someone like that who is going through something like that.
Yep.
So I just have to say kudos to the Tigers. And for the fans out there who want to call him a bust and want to throw shots his way. I get why that might be easy to do based on the narrative of what he was coming out of that trade, and he hasn't played much at all as a Tiger. I get it. Don't do it. It's low
Mhm.
hanging fruit, and for something like that, we don't know what he's going on through. The mental health crisis in this world is very, very real, and I think we have to give these people the time and the process to handle it as they see fit. Whether you're a major league baseball player or someone who is, flipping burgers at a Wendy's, it doesn't
Yep.
matter. Does it mental health issues? They don't pick and choose based on your profession. So the best course of action is just to support those and be there for those who need it. I just thought we should address that.
Yeah, I agree completely, and it's also I echo your feeling proud as a Tigers fan for the way in which the organization has handled this, the way in which they've issued statements of support. They are giving him the time that he needs, and I presume giving him the resources that he needs as well, to get better, to work through this. And to Tigers fans, like, would you want a guy in the outfield playing with a separated shoulder? No. And it's essentially the exact same thing, that there is something wrong and he needs to get better. Um,
Yep.
and we don't want him to be on the field trying to play through something that is hurting him, and would ultimately hurt the team. If we want to be, pure wins and losses about it, that if there's a guy out there who is um, unmotivated, feeling all sorts of the various symptoms that come with anxiety and depression, he's his His eyes not going to be on the ball. Forgive the baseball metaphor there. Like he's gonna make mistakes. He's gonna do all these things that are going to be an outstretch of him being unwell, and we want him to get healthy so that he can be the player that the Tigers, and I agree with, feel like he can be for this organization moving forward.
Yeah, and I think too, and I can raise my hand. Anyone who listens to our show or follows the Twitter account, I love throwing my shots. I think that definitely comes to the territory when you're a professional athlete. But I think as human beings, we all have to realize that there is a line sometimes. And for the people who are going after the Tigers or Austin Meadows in particular, it's not a great look. So I would just say give the man his peace. Let him be. Let him get his stuff figured out. Austin Meadows can still 100% when he is physically and mentally healthy. He can and he will contribute to this team. I have no doubt about it in my mind. It's been a slow burn. Imagine if you're a Tigers fan right now and you're frustrated and annoyed with this, then just imagine being the person who actually has to go through it.
Yeah.
They have to the mental warfare he's probably going through. I won't even try to begin to speculate because I don't know what exactly it is, and that's none of my business. All you can do is just be there. So I think that's just kind of the best way to be there and support.
It's interesting. It's interesting that we kind of went that route, Luke, because yeah, obviously, like looking at the Paredes Meadows trade, the jury's still out, I think, because I don't think we can properly judge the trade until Austin has had some actual playing time with the Tigers. And one thing that's also interesting to me is that when we initially talked about that trade potentially being a bust, when Austin was going with when he had the inner ear issues, is kind of wondering if the Rays had a sense that something was up. And I don't know. I don't know what the mental health protocols are in Major League Baseball. This certainly feels like maybe not a first case, but certainly something different than what we've normally seen in terms of like guys being on and off the IR for different issues. And perhaps some of those guys that we think of as being glass and going on the IR for something as like a hangnail, maybe what they're actually dealing with is a mental health thing, and there's such a stigma attached to that they don't want to say that that's what it is. And so I legitimately don't know. I'd be interested to see if there's more open discussions about these types of issues in Major League Baseball, because it is such a long season for these guys to be away from your family. Like even if your family lives in Detroit, like you're not seeing them during the season. Like you maybe see them when you go home at night, but then you got to be back at the stadium the next day pretty early. So,
and then you take into consideration you're traveling half the season as well. Living on a suitcase. Yeah, I mean, there is a whole other side to it, that none of us know. And I know, and again, I'm not trying to act like I'm above. I've definitely slinged my fair share of mud and made my jokes and my bits and everything. I think, that all comes with the territory, but you just have to know that there is a line. So just like I said, be there, support, and don't be that guy or gal who's, throwing the cheap shot when someone's really down. Don't kick them while they're down. Try and help them up. And that's probably the best way to go about it. On positive news, I think we might both be thinking the same thing. The Detroit Tigers just swept the Cleveland Guardians in a day doubleheader. Good stuff. 1-0. Eduardo Rodriguez gets the win. Jason Foley has looked phenomenal out of the bullpen.
Yeah,
best pitcher out of the pen this season. And the Riley Green solo shot held up. Tigers now go to 7-9. How about that?
And I believe 2.5 games out of first place.
I believe so. As well. That's a 5-game win streak.
Yeah, that's 5 in a row.
Not bad. So
didn't even need a walk-off this time.
What's that?
Didn't even need a walk-off this time.
It's true. They finally snapped their walk-off streak. Unfortunately, that's okay. I'm cool with winning games and not having to go to extra innings.
It's a very slow walk-off.
Yeah, so let's look at it this way. So we've got one more game against Cleveland, off day on Thursday. Then they do a little road trip to Baltimore, Milwaukee, and then four back home against Baltimore to round out the month of April. They're
Mhm.
2 games under 500 right now, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 more to go. This team breaks 500 the rest of the way. They finish 2 to 3 games. Maybe I'll even give them 4 or 5 under 500. That's a win.
That's a
That is a
huge April for this team.
huge April. To me, that will, again, I'm not going to celebrate them being 5 games under 500. There's still 5 games under, but coming out of the last 2 Aprils, looking at how this team started going into this month of April, if you would have told me this time last week that there are 2 games under 500 and they've got a very legit, I mean, honestly, if they go 5 and 6 the rest of this month, they will finish 3 games under 500 going into May. Now, again, not a great mentality to have when you're okay with
And
being under
in
500,
May
but
still
think
be
about
in
in
the title
context.
hunt,
Yeah,
which is something
yeah.
that we haven't legitimately been in years.
And if you look at their month of May, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. Let's, because they still got Baltimore, who's scrappy. Milwaukee's always scrappy. They got another game against the Guardians tomorrow. I'm not just going to say that's a rollover when we know how much Cleveland's beaten the shit out of Detroit these last few years. But
But a series win against a division opponent, which is
not only that, you're looking at 2 series wins in a row with the Giants and the Cleveland Guardians. So, look, I mean, baseball's a weird game, and maybe this is something, a nice little reminder for me to, practice a little more patience. But they look better. This looks
Mhm.
like an actual competent team. This looks like that team that we thought maybe going into the season. Maybe this is the team that, yes, is going to struggle, but they're going to go out there and fight and scrap. I think that's what a lot of people forget about 2021. We all know they fought and scrapped a lot, but they were in so many of those games
Yeah.
from May to September. They really were. Other than that atrocious month of April, I still stand by the fact, had they just found a way to break out of that month of April, 5 under 500 or right around 500, whatever, they would have finished that year above 500. They really would have. But they just got off
Mhm.
to such an abysmal start that it completely just sunk them the rest of the season. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. You don't want to get too ahead of yourselves. Last week we were ready to cancel the season. We don't want to start planning a parade this week, but positive signs of life, which I think is what you're hoping for when you're in year 48 of a rebuild.
Yeah, I agree completely. Now, Luke, I had another question I wanted to talk to you about um, in this show, and in the understanding that I know way, 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 way too early for this conversation. But I want to take us back to January real quick
Hmm.
and the trade with the Phillies, where Gregory Soto and Cody Clemens went to Philadelphia. The Detroit Tigers received Matt Vierling, Nick Maton, and Donnie Sands, the
Hmm.
number 21 prospect per MLB Pipeline in the Phillies organization. I would have told you without hesitation it was a fine trade for the Tigers, but the Phillies won that trade. I don't feel that way anymore. How do you feel about that trade?
Well, the jury's still, so I'm not ready to declare a winner yet. If you're asking me who won the trade 3 weeks into the season, it's the Detroit Tigers. I may have a completely different tune by the All-Star break, by the end of the year, but as it currently stands, it's the Tigers. We really, 'cause we don't do a lot of coverage during the off season, but that trade, all that trade was for the Tigers was potential upside. I don't think anybody expected
Mhm.
Gregory Soto to be around much because we knew he was, rumored to be a trade chip even last season. Cody Clemens, yeah, maybe that was a little surprising just because he really didn't have much of a go in Detroit, minus last kind of like June, July, August, that time frame, whatever. Um, but there was only upside, right? Or potential upside with Vierling and Maton. They were, young guys, can play positions, quick, kind of that spark, those aggressive hitters in the box, which it seems like Scott Harris is trying to kind of, get to the organization and get those guys in the box to be kind of just those pests in the lineup. So as it stands now, yeah, they I would say the Tigers have definitely won the trade. Both of those guys have had huge moments with the Tigers in just these first few weeks. I mean, Nick Maton, the walk off, Matt Vierling had the go ahead shot in Houston. So yeah,
Vierling
absolutely, you
robbed a
can make
home
an
run
argument.
today.
Oh, did he? I didn't even see that in the highlights.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I mean, look, man, obviously we're singing a different tune. Again, I can't stress that enough. Had we done this show last week, we would have probably been just smashing walls and everything in our sight. Winning cures everything. But not only are they winning baseball games, they're doing it in an actual Major League Baseball fashion. They look
Yeah.
competent. They're playing, for the most part, relatively clean baseball. They're still not a perfect team by any means, but they're making quick adjustments to the mistakes they had last week and in weeks prior. The bullpen, again, not a lot of name power, star power in that bullpen. But right now, knock on wood, they're getting the job done. They just blanked the Cleveland Guardians for God's sakes. Now, get granted, Eduardo Rodriguez went 8 innings, but still, Eduardo Rodriguez, Erod, just threw an 8 inning shutout against the Cleveland Guardians. That deserves some respect. That deserves some kudos. So
And I
things
think
are look, things are
looking at
hot
the
right now. That's
numbers,
good.
like as I think about that trade. So I think the way that I think about that trade, like
Yeah.
it feels like Clemens for Sands and then Vierling and Maton for Soto. That kind of like is how it breaks down in my head.
Hmm.
And so if I look at like Gregory Soto's numbers so far this year, he's got a
Well, not great.
5.4 ERA over 6.2 innings pitched. Again, we've said this a couple times during the show about other people. Small sample size, I understand. But for the first time in a long time, it feels like the Tigers traded a guy at the exact right moment. As opposed to, we're not going to make a move with this guy, and then he falls apart or something goes awry, and suddenly we're not getting the same return. Gregory Soto was having that season right now. For us, we're not getting anything in return for Gregory Soto.
Hmm.
And
Or on the flip side, let me throw another thing at you. The Tigers getting kind of ahead of a trade in the right way. The Tigers trading someone before they have a chance to develop. Looking at you, Trace Thompson with the LA Dodgers. Cash considerations? Are you kidding me, Al Avila? Are you actually kidding
Yeah.
me, sir?
So,
Unbelievable. But
I think
I get
like
what you're saying.
looking at the offseason, we were a little like about the Scott Harris era of Detroit Tigers baseball. But now, as we're starting to like see things play out, I'm getting more and more excited about Scott Harris era baseball in Detroit.
I need to see more. I can't give Scott an A on the report card just because for the last week a trade he made in the offseason has looked good for the Tigers. I can't do it. I need to see more. I still think he completely dropped the ball with not trying to bring in one to two somewhat bona fide relievers to add some gravitas to this bullpen. I mean, until you think about it, the Tigers gutted their bullpen. Traded Fulmer last season, didn't bring back Funkhauser, and he was granted injured last season. You trade Soto, you trade Joe Jimenez, and I'm not saying these guys. We've ranted on those guys for many seasons in the past, but for what it's worth, they seem to all kind of be gelling and clicking as a cohesive unit. They don't bring back Andrew Chafin; they let him walk to Arizona, and then Scott Harris just brings in a couple, guys who look like they're over the hill or people who've never thrown a pitch in the major leagues before, and rightfully so. The narrative on that doesn't look great, so. I'm just I'm not ready yet to give Scott the A plus, but I'm willing to say, yeah, it looks fine right now. Let's keep monitoring though that specific trade this entire season because I think that will be a first look. If we get to the end of September and those guys are spark plugs, we're gonna be like, we are in for a good offseason with Scott Harris. If he can kind of puppet master his way like he did with Mayton and Vierling. But we just gotta wait and see. Jury's still out on that for me. Yeah, the last week has been fun with Nick Mayton and Matt Vierling, but it's a long season. It's a very long season, so I can't quite give him the props yet.
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
So.
Okay, Luke, my number today, inspired by a text from Sean Young in our baseball group chat that we have, that he sent to poke a little fun at resident A's fan Tom, who's also an Avalanche fan, so he's fine right now in this time.
And he's a Niners fan. He's like he's
fine. Everybody,
he's fine. Yeah,
don't feel bad for Tom being a fan of the Oakland A's.
Alex is a
Um,
Tigers and a Lions fan. I'm a Tigers and Bears fan. All right, we've like, come on,
I
like
mean the NFC Central champion Detroit Lions.
I can't wait to get to football season because I've got. This is a very bold prediction. I'm going off baseball for a moment. I have no beef with the Detroit Lions. I don't. I consider myself, as I always say, like I'm the extended member of the Detroit sports family because I'm with the Tigers for half my year. I have no beef with the Detroit Lions. They've been worse than the Bears for many, many seasons, and that's saying a lot. Um, but and I might be wrong on this. Only time will tell. We'll definitely keep touch on this, through the football season. I feel like Lions fans are setting themselves up for some severe disappointment this season. I'm not saying they're going to go out and go 0-17. I'm not saying that at all. But I feel like the Lions think they are just going to run away with the NFC North, and I don't think it's going to be as easy as they think. I think people are putting a lot of eggs in their basket on Jared Goff. Yep, he had a real nice season last year, but track record wise, not the most consistent across the board. I do think they were a little foolish not to try to go out and get Lamar Jackson. I
I
think they
agree with
bring
that.
in Lamar Jackson.
I think
I
that would have
think
missed.
then they're the new top dog in the NFC North. With Rodgers being on the bubble, Kirk Cousins, he's Kirk Cousins. And I think the Bears will be improved this season, no doubt about it. To what level they'll be improved, we'll kind of wait and see. I think a lot depends on how their draft goes soon. I think that's going to be the big thing for the Chicago Bears. But had the Lions gone out and gotten Lamar, then I would believe the
Mhm.
hype. But Jared Goff,
I think there's a
yeah,
chance
yeah, he had a good he
the Lions
had
get
a
a
good year
quarterback in
last
the
year.
draft.
Had a good years last year. But longevity wise, he's very hot and cold, hit and miss. So we'll see. We'll see. But Lions fans, I love the optimism. I do because I have no beef with you. Truly, I have no beef with Detroit Lions or their fans. But as someone who's been burned by a Detroit sports team for many, many years, uh, may I offer just pacing yourselves just a little.
We would all run through a wall for Dan Campbell, and so we will not be pacing ourselves.
Okay, but would you run through a Little Caesars brick wall if it meant we could throw Chris Illich out of America Bar?
Absolutely, 100%. Let's go.
All right, let's get the helmets. Let's do this thing.
I would only eat Little Caesars pizzas as my pizza for the rest of my life if it meant Chris
Rest of
Illich
your
would
life.
sell the team right now
Wow. All right.
to an owner
All
that
right.
wanted to win a championship.
Little Caesars every day for the rest of your life. That would be brutal. That'd be brutal. Maybe a Jets pizza. Jets pizza is so good. Now we're going on the pizza topic. But boy, oh boy.
I don't know who owns Jets Pizza, but they should buy the Tigers. I think that
I don't know who owns Jets Pizza, but they should do me a courtesy and send me a pizza the minute the show concludes recording because I am hungry and that sounds delightful.
all right, so let's do
Anyways,
the
you had some
number. Let's do
numbers?
the number so that you can go eat a Jets pizza.
Some numbers?
So
Also, real quick, I'm sorry. I just cut
apologize.
you off. Terrible.
Sean Young didn't send this. Colin Lyman sent this. I apologize, Colin. You need to give the right credit. You're the one
Was he
twisting the
poking
knife.
fun at was Colin poking fun at Tom?
Yeah,
Oh, so much for the whole nice guy moniker.
resident
Give me
nice
a
guy
break.
Colin Lyman coming
Nice
for Tom
guy
Souls
Colin Lyman. Guy's the biggest
by
bully in the world.
throat.
Everyone knows that.
He sent a picture from Barstool Baseball that had this statistic. Oakland's minus 62 run differential is the worst by a team through its first 15 games since the 1988 Orioles. So, Luke, that inspired me. The numbers I'm looking at, just so you know, are not updated through today. So we're not quite. So these are as of the games ended Monday. Is where these numbers are up to date. Where do the Detroit Tigers rank in run differential this season?
Okay, so we got the A's dead last.
That is correct. Currently at minus 72 through 17
and
games
then
for the A's.
Who's in first? I just got a curiosity. Can you give me that so I can kind of have a gauge here?
No, that would give it away. No, I'm just kidding. It's the Tampa Bay Rays with a run differential of plus
Oh, yeah,
65.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that I should have thought about that. They lost like 4 in a row now or something ever since going on that winning streak. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
They're losing
So
games to the Reds.
as of Monday's games, they were 14-3.
Oh wow, what a terrible start for the Rays.
I
Just a
know.
bunch of
I know.
complete
Awful.
sandbaggers. Okay.
Frauds.
All right, let's see here. Um I'm gonna, I don't think it's as bad as I think it is in my brain,
Mhm.
but there were a couple losses this year where they lost like 14-3. I'm gonna put them just not quite outside of the top 20. I'm gonna put them 21.
Okay, it is as bad as you think it is.
Oh, 29.
They're actually they're 28.
Oh
Um,
God.
they're actually no, they did not score enough runs to move up. And
Fair.
I haven't looked at the Royals scores. I don't think the Royals have played yet today, so
Way
I don't
too I was
think
way too kind.
they'll move up. They are 28th as of Monday with a run differential of minus 37. So I guess that's going to move to minus 35 after today's games. The Royals are right above them at minus 32. Right below them is the Colorado Rockies at minus 38 in run differential.
I don't blame myself for being dumb on this. I blame this show that we didn't record this episode last week. Because had you asked me last week, I would have said they were 31st in the majors with where they would rank with their run differential. But because they've won a few games, I'm all of a sudden right back in. Just as I thought I was out, they pulled me back in, and
Mhm.
now I'm confident somewhat again. And that's what'll kill you in this lifetime, folks. Optimism and confidence.
Now, here's the
Hopefully.
thing. I don't care about run differential.
No.
Not in the least. Because it doesn't really translate to the win-loss column.
Right.
Because baseball's such a weird sport
Hmm.
in that, yeah, you can readily go out and lose a game 12-0 and then win your next four games 1-0, 2-1,
Yeah.
4-1, and like kind of like dominated those games.
Yep. I mean, look at the Tigers today. They just won 1-0 and then 4-3. Like, I mean, it's not a whole lot of daylight there, so to speak. You're not gonna make back your minus run differential
Yeah.
when you're, pitching shutouts or winning 1-run games, whatever. So yeah, I get what you're going for there. I don't care so much about that as much as I do about what's going on in the win loss column. That's by far the most important thing. So just keep it going, Tigers, please. You're on a 5-game win streak. When we record our next episode in 2 weeks, it could be a very different tune we're singing. But right now, we sound pretty good and we're having fun. So kudos to the team. The difference a week can make is insane.
Now, okay, I'm going to give you one more bonus question.
Okay.
How many? So the A's worst start by a team run differential wise, first 15 games since the 1988 Baltimore Orioles. How many games did the 1988 Baltimore Orioles win after starting with a worse than minus 62 run differential in their first 15 games?
Oh, um,
And now keep in mind, I was just talking about how run differential doesn't translate to wins and losses.
right. How many games did they win? Well, I just can only go off the Tigers' crappy wins. So they won 39 in 03 and 47 in 2019. Didn't the Orioles win like 44 like sometime in the 2010s, I want to say, or 45? I'm going to say the 88 Orioles won, based off that little hint you gave me too about your just stat you just said. I'm going to say they won 49 games.
That's not bad. It was 54.
Yeah.
And their Pythagorean win loss, which is what factors in like runs versus runs allowed, blah blah blah, was 55 and
Hmm.
106. So I guess maybe it translates more than I think it does. What does
Yeah.
baseball reference know that I don't know?
True. True.
Nothing. I'm clearly
What
superior
real
statistician.
quick though, let me give you a number. And I'm sorry, we're just going on the Oakland A's right now, but I mean it's kind of the Comedy Central roast of the A's this season. Let me throw a number your way.
We also feel really good about our team right now, so we
Yeah.
we feel like
We
we
could
can lob
easily
some shots.
Tom and I were texting last week and we were just saying how it's going to be so miserable. And I've gotten all cocky because I've won 5 in a row. And I'm all of a sudden I think I'm better than him. And that's just not right. Tom, I love you. I'm sure we'll be back in the pits of hell with you sometime later this season. So please keep my seat warm. 17, the number of batters the Oakland A's walked this past weekend. I believe it was against the New York Mets, if I'm not mistaken. Just insane. Not only that, and I pose this question in our group chat, and I'll pose it to you right now, and then also to our listeners. What's worse? What is the worst thing, the most egregious thing the Oakland A's have done this season? Their overall state of the team, their play, the 17 walks, or the fact that there are possums running rampant in the Oakland A's Coliseum. So much that the Mets broadcast team had to go to a completely different booth because there was a wild possum in the booth while they were trying to broadcast the game. I mean, it's got to be the possum.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as much as there's a dog just like going nuts behind me right now. It's
I can't hear it,
almost
but good for him
it's,
or her.
it's almost like I'm in the Oakland Coliseum trying to broadcast with a possum, just
And,
hanging out.
and possums and dogs bark the same, just so we're all on the same page.
The possum has got to be the worst of it, because like as much as the Oakland A's are as an organization are trying to be like, no, we're not trying to like suck so bad everybody just lets us move to Vegas.
Mhm.
It's like you're literally not even keeping wild animals out of your stadium so that the broadcast team doesn't get rabies.
It's like if I had read that story or seen that headline and it was like single A team in Omaha, Nebraska has to cancel game because possum is loose in visitors broadcast booth, I'd be like, well, this makes sense. This is a podunk little minor league team. I get that. Folks, this is a major league baseball team. This is a major league baseball team that is having this much issue. I mean, God forbid. I mean, not God forbid. God bless. Excuse me. The Oakland A's fan base said, "Have you seen those games? I have seen I've seen libraries that have been more jam packed than what you are seeing at a major league sporting event with the product the Oakland A's are putting." We got to get Tom on the show sometime soon because, and this is another question I'll pose to you real quick. Do the A's finish with a worse record than the 03 Tigers at 39 wins or the 2019 with 47? I think they're going to fall somewhere right between. I don't think they'll be worse than the 03 Tigers. I don't think they'll be better than the 2019 Tigers. I don't. I think this team, and I could be wrong. I've been wrong a ton on this show. That's a fact. But 41 to 42 wins I see for the A's right now. They are just abysmal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they turn it around. Like, I know it's still early, there's still time, but it's not like the organization is committed to doing anything that could help them.
And
anybody,
when the Oakland A's,
anybody who shows a little bit of talent, they're gonna send them away.
Yeah, and when the Oakland A's inevitably sweep the Detroit Tigers, because I think they've got a really good record against the Tigers in regular season play, for however many seasons now, at least recent seasons, I will eat a live possum live on the show. And then that will also coincidentally be not only our final episode of the Michigan and Trumbull podcast, but my final moments in life, because I will be dead, much like the Oakland A's as an organization.
It's true. All right, Luke, that's going to do it for this episode. Have a good week.
Go Tigers. Have a great week. Keep the win streak alive, boys.